She who dares wins. Can you tell me how you've dared and won?
For me growing up, that if there was ever anything I could beat my brother at, then that was like a massive win. And I think because he was so talented at sport, I was definitely like, right, I'll get the brains. I'm not even going to try and touch sport. I'm going to work really hard and do really well. And I did. I then studied biology at Cambridge University. I am the head of operations for Niall Wilson Gymnastics. That's how we spent our days, basically outside in the garden, making content, producing TikToks, teaching Niall how to do dances, and just like fully just got involved in that world from there. And I think that's probably what turbocharged it. I definitely started YouTube in lockdown, and like my slogan has been anything is possible if you just were. That was why we started Niall Wilson Gymnastics. Niall wanted people far and wide to get into the sport that changed all of our life. We wanted to change the game within the industry and within the sport as well, and leave a really positive legacy in a sport that has had a bit of not positive light shone on it.
All right, hello, welcome to She Dares Wins podcast, and my guest today is Joanna Wilson. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. All right, so first question, the biggie.
We're going straight in.
Going straight in.
We're going straight in for a question.
Yeah. She who dares wins.
Yeah.
I know, but can you tell me how you've dared and won?
Wow. What a great question to open up with. Where do we start? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of areas in my life that I feel like I've sort of jumped in and won. I think the general place for me and like the starting point was definitely sort of in academia and in my studies at school. I've got a brother who is a sportsman, is a sportsman. And so it kind of became a thing for me growing up that if there was ever anything I could beat my brother at, then that was like a massive win.
I like a bit of sibling rivalry.
Yeah,
I feel
and
that.
I think because he was so talented at sport, I was definitely like, right, I'll get the brains. I'm not even gonna try and touch sport. I will go straight down the academia route, and I just worked really hard in school, and from sort of, I guess, that age of year 10 upwards where you start doing your exams and things start getting a little bit more serious, and that was just my thing. I was like, I'm gonna work really hard and do really well, and I did, and then that led to me going on to my A-levels. I then studied biology at Cambridge University.
Whoa!
Which was a
Holy
experience.
shit, you can't drop that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then sort of since, I haven't really used my degree and what it was for, but like, I guess along the way, learn how to put myself in situations that require hard work and like know how to work hard through them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I guess I translate that into a lot of different areas in my life, be it my fitness goals, my business goals, personal goals. Sort of, it all stems back to working really hard.
Working really hard.
Yeah.
So coming out of uni then, what was the first job that you had?
I got a graduate job. So I went to it was a funny old time actually, because I graduated in 2019 and I'd already got my job by the time I graduated, but the plan was to not start it for another year. So the job that I'd got had staggered start dates, which meant that after you'd graduated you could take sort of a year out and do whatever you wanted to do. So my plan was to always take a gap year between university and starting my first job, and it was in consulting, so operations. And the plan was to start in September of 2020.
Okay.
So I graduated in summer of 2019 and I was going to take a full year. Did bits and bobs of hospitality, and the social media was a thing then, so it was continuing to build platforms on there. Went travelling at the start of 2020, and then obviously in March COVID hit and sort of changed everybody's plans. The reason that I was originally going to start in September of 2020 was because of Tokyo. And again, the Olympics didn't even happen at that point. So the plan was for Niall to go to Tokyo and sort of for that to be clear in my diary to be able to go with him. So yeah, I started working at the end of 2020 remotely. I guess very different experience to what I anticipated going into the role. But the role again taught me a lot. I think that it was based around solving problems, which was something that I was sort of motivated by and excited by, and had done quite a lot of in various other different elements and areas of my life.
Was it in sport or was it?
No, it was in business.
Oh, okay.
So like operations consulting, going out into, they worked in public, private, and the defence sector. So going into businesses and supporting with the way that they run them and improving their efficiency. I definitely learned a lot, and I stayed there for 12 months, and then left my job and became fun-employed. I said at the time, self-employed, unemployed, started doing all of the bits that were related to myself rather than working for somebody else.
And what does that involve now? So you are, would it be fair to say that you, as a sibling, I know you probably like, yeah, but you're the kind of brains behind the business side of Niall's operations in the gymnastics world?
That would definitely be fair to say.
He's not going to be hating on me.
That would be an understatement.
Oh, okay, right. The
no,
pinnacle, the back.
Yeah, no, I think in terms of my role now, I am the head of operations for Niall Wilson Gymnastics. So support the day-to-day running of all of the clubs that we've got. We've got 6 gymnastics clubs now, which is pretty amazing. Wild to sit here and say on a Wednesday afternoon. Yeah. And I am still sort of got a bit of a personal brand that is built over 10 years or so now on social media. And then I'm involved in a couple of other businesses in the sport and leisure industry.
Amazing. Your personal brand then, how did that start? Because your videos are incredible. Like, I absolutely love watching the challenges that you do. So for anyone, you should check it out. It's, how would you describe it? Gymnastic challenges?
Yeah, I guess we are very much sort of in the entertainment space, sport space, and then I guess myself personally, I didn't obviously come from a background of professional sport, so I consider my content more lifestyle based as well. I think that, I mean, it honestly kind of just happened as being a byproduct of being in Niall's videos and involved in his journey and growth on social media. And I think that, we obviously, I say we, have talked for myself, my partner Ash, friend Luke as well, sort of saw what Niall built and the success that he sort of gained and the traction and the following that he gained and the fun that he was having and the opportunities that he got within that world. And I think I definitely was posting quite a bit on social media pre-COVID, but I also think COVID very much turbocharged that as well. And we had lockdown, we didn't have a job, didn't have anywhere to go. And it was like, all right, well, we might as well just start this social media thing as well and dive straight in. And at the time, myself and Niall moved back in with our parents for the lockdown, and it was really sunny. Do you remember when we? It
was amazing. I was saying this to someone the other day, like Easter.
Yeah,
my kids were in shorts.
Yeah. So that's how we spent our days, basically outside in the garden, making content, producing TikToks, teaching Niall how to do dances, and just like fully just got involved in that world from there. And I think that's probably what turbocharged it. I definitely started YouTube in lockdown.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that was it. It's been a funny old journey on YouTube for me, because I think because my background isn't just sport and isn't really at all sport, I wasn't a sports person, but sort of I'm involved in sport because of the squad and how that works. I think my sort of journey in social media and the stuff that I'm putting out there is often quite transitioned between doing bits of the sport, but then also documenting my life and what's going on in that world as well.
It's also quite nice to see, when you've got an elite athlete, sometimes it's a little hard to relate when they're doing amazing things.
I'm the normal person.
But yeah, that's really cool because, well, I was like, no, I like, you obviously have, a natural
I'm the
ability
control group for any of my scientists out there. The guys are the crazy ones and I'm the control. I like to show people what it's like on this side of the world.
Yeah.
But I do think it puts into perspective how amazing they are at what they do as well.
It does. And equally, it makes you, as someone that's watching, I'm like, oh, maybe I could do something like that, which is, I think, what, the positive side of social media is, isn't it? It's when you can relate to someone and say, oh, maybe I could have a crack at that. I mean, some of the stuff you do, I wouldn't even attempt, but yeah.
No, definitely. And I think that, I mean, my brand has always been, and like my slogan has been, anything is possible if you just work. And I think like we touched on at the start, like everything I do is sort of the epitome of that. And I genuinely, whether it's a little bit crazy or not, I do have this belief that if you work hard enough at something, then you have the ability to like significantly progress in that area. I'm not saying that I'm gonna go to the Olympics one day and be a gymnast. I'm not deluded within that, but I genuinely do think that, like, I just really believe in putting in the work in whatever area of your life, and I like to prove to myself and I guess outwardly to other people that if you do sort of set goals and a plan and work towards something, you then do reap the rewards of that.
Yeah, things happen, don't they? And I think they don't, like you say, it's not an overnight success for anyone. It's a gradual thing. I've got to touch on the fact that, so I ran a business with my brother for a few years in the mix of a few different careers. And it's interesting. We get on really well and have different abilities. Mm-hmm. How was that, like your decision to work behind Niall? A partnership?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it definitely started as four. And it definitely started in what you're describing, which is different skill sets. Mm-hmm. When I was at uni, Niall sort of was just taking off in social media, and behind the scenes of that was a lot of admin, and he was still training professionally at the time as well, and he launched a program business and a merchandise business alongside his growth on social media.
Okay.
Definitely at that time when I was at university, I was the person who was sat behind the emails and checking the inboxes every day and answering inquiries and thinking about the infrastructure side behind. And I think that it definitely has given me opportunities that I wouldn't necessarily have gotten. But I think, like you say, me and my brother are really close and we respect each other's strengths and I guess use each other's strengths in the growth of what we're doing. I mean, it comes with its pros and cons working with family, doesn't it?
But it's also really nice, isn't it? Because you're creating a bit of a legacy for the name. Like
100%. And I think that was why we started Niall Wilson Gymnastics. Niall wanted people far and wide to get into the sport that changed all of our lives, and we wanted to change the game within the industry and within the sport as well, and leave a really positive legacy in a sport that has had a bit of not positive light shone on it in the last few years, and I'd like to hope that we're doing that. But yeah, I think that it's one of those, isn't it? It's the pros have got to outweigh the cons, and I think that one thing that is definitely, you have to set boundaries and know where the line is and the boundaries between different people that you work with, and that's in any walk of life and with any person. But I just think it's even more important when the people that you're working with, your siblings and your parents as well. I've been working closely with my dad in the last 3 years, and that's come with its challenges, but like the outcome and the product far outweighs the challenges and the bumps that you've got to sort of overcome on the way.
What's because obviously Niall's, in his own right, has got a name in gymnastics, and I guess is telling his story through that, through social media. What's your anchor and your passion? Is it to change the world of gymnastics, or?
That's a great question. I think I've definitely got different passions in the different areas of my life. So I'd say yes, very much so, in the Niall Wilson Gymnastics bucket of my life. It is to change the world in gymnastics. It's to get as many people involved in the sport that we know is so good for we were just having this conversation before we turned the camera on, but the fundamental skills and foundations of children, of adults. So definitely, I think that I guess overall it definitely comes back to that sort of setting a plan, working hard, and then like reaping the outcomes. I definitely like something that I'm really passionate about is overcoming challenges and sort of setting myself a goal or a challenge that might scare me a little bit, but then working through the challenges and working through the plan in order to get there and sort of come out the other end.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. What's that light there? Perverty words. The only kind of things that I've deep dived into in the world of gymnastics is the documentary that was on Netflix.
Yeah.
Is that when you talk about the perceptions that could be negative in the industry, is that, like, what are we talking about? What kind of exists within gymnastics that you are kind of hoping to shift?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's exactly what I'm talking about, the sort of perception of the sport off the back of Athlete A, which is the documentary that went live a couple of years ago.
Which was the US team.
It was the female US team. There's also recently been the White Review in the UK, which was off the back of Athlete A, and was reviewing the sport and where it's at and what positive things we need to move forward with. And I guess for me, it's about delivering the sport in a really fun and positive and engaging way, and rather than a strict way. And I think that the sport has come a long way, and it's definitely going in the right direction. But there's also just things that are within it that reap. What's the right word? It's a sport that's measured against perfectionism. We were having this conversation the other day. So when you do a gymnastics routine, you start at 10, and everything that you do wrong,
I didn't realise that.
I mark you down on.
So it's not.
Previously, routines were out of 10. There is now a difficulty element to the sport. So you do 8 skills within a routine, and each of those skills has a difficulty score, and then that gets added to the execution score, which is out of 10, and they get added together.
Right. Okay.
And that's what produces your score. But I think it was just a conversation that I was having with Ash about what it does to a child's psyche to literally be consistently measured against perfection.
Yeah.
And that's the starting point. You need to be perfect, and then we're going to mark you down on everything that you don't do perfectly.
It's quite a negative thing, actually. The mindset of rather than starting at 0 and working up.
100%.
Is that the only sport that does that?
I don't think so. I definitely think a lot of sports sort of in that world, sports like diving, and that sort of stuff, it's like you are trying to do the perfect routine or the perfect dive. And I definitely think that the way that gymnastics works as well is the code of points changes every Olympic cycle. So it changed after Paris last year, and we're in sort of the first year of the new code of points. And they're definitely making some really positive changes towards rewarding more difficult skills or more scary and dangerous skills. They've made some of the difficulty of some of the skills a little bit higher. They've reduced the number of elements that you have to do in a routine. So I think there's definitely moves towards that. But I just think it was an interesting point that I guess none of us had really thought about until I was having a conversation about it the other day, is that perception of perfection is the goal, and then everything under perfection is...
Oh, yeah, there was psychology.
Yeah, 100%. And that is I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. That is the sport. But I think if we can keep the delivery and the goal setting and the training and the way that gymnasts move forward in the sport really positive, that can then outweigh, perhaps.
And I don't know, but I'm guessing. So my experience is my little one came to Niall Wilson Gymnastics, and instantly when you walk in, I'm not being paid to say this. I don't know. My all I can remember from gymnastics at school, and I'm a lot older than you, was like the wooden bench and the bars in a cold, horrible wooden hall. And when you walk into, we go to the one in Leeds. It's bright. It's colourful. Yeah. It's really welcoming. There's I know this sounds crazy, but there's guy instructors. You know, it's pretty much 50-50 on the instructor side of things. And you just walk in and it just looks like, this reference probably get you, but like Funhouse, 'cause way before your time. It just makes you want to go and play. And I think essentially that's where everyone comes to in sport, isn't it? Like when your first entry in should be fun, not competitive.
100%. And like I say, the sport itself is really fun, and like it's definitely an element of that. But in terms of developmental areas for all ages as well, we're talking about strength, we're talking about confidence, we're talking about camaraderie and teamwork, we're talking about mobility and being able to move your body in ways that perhaps you might not be able to, and it's definitely, it's not classed as a life skill. Like, for example, swimming is obviously...
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get their child into swimming because you need to learn how to swim, and it is a life skill. Gymnastics doesn't fall in that bracket, but I do think that the elements and the benefits that you can gain from the sport can support in all areas of life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that comes across. And it comes across in all the fun stuff that you do on socials as well, of like, you know, people attempting these things all across the media as well, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
So now that you are kind of using your business knowledge in building the brand and making, you know, you are going to be changing perceptions with what you do and the way that you're running things in the gym.
Yeah.
What do you want? What's your kind of 10-year plan? Like, I'm excited because it is like a business. I know you manage other athletes as well, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, you're still quite young, and to have done what you've done is pretty, you know, awesome.
Thanks.
Like, where do you see it going?
Great question. I think that from a Niall Wilson Gymnastics perspective, the goal is to continue growing and to continue to welcome clubs into our family and welcome more gymnasts and parents and coaches into the family of everything that we're doing. I think myself personally, within that, I'm on a bit of a journey with my own leadership, and I'm leading a team of people within a business, and I'm still learning and evolving and growing. And like I say, it's pinch me moments, but also moments where I'm like laying awake at night thinking the livelihood of these people and how everything does and stuff depends on me, and it's all scary.
It's a huge responsibility. Like, how many is in your how many are you kind of managing?
So we've got 6 clubs at the moment. Each of them has got somebody on the ground running the operations, and then we've got 3 regional head coaches, so probably 9 or 10. And then they've obviously got teams within each of the clubs. But I think that, like I'm on a personal journey with my own leadership, and I want to make sure that everybody in my team feels supported and is also on a development and growth journey themselves, because I think that's going to be the way that we can continue to grow everything that we're doing, is by nurturing the people that work with us, work for us, to be their best selves, so that they can continue to develop and grow as well. So yeah, I'd definitely say that that's sort of something that I'm personally working on.
Where do you think that comes from? Because you are still quite young.
Yeah.
And coming out of uni, you know, it was probably a year or 2 years of jobs, and then you stepped into this role. And leadership is something that I'd associate with someone, you know, who has 10, 20 years of experience in business. What keeps you awake at night? Is it, you know, is it thoughts of, can I do this? Because you're doing a great job, so there really shouldn't be. But
thanks.
I think there'll be people out there that are kind of similar in age to you that just wouldn't even think about, you know, going into a business and driving forward. What skill set? I will get to it's like 2 questions within this. Like, how do you think you've kind of landed where you have? Is that through your degree and just wanting to work on operations? And secondly, what keeps you awake at night?
Okay. I think firstly, like, I'm very much a people person, and I think my whole family is like, we thrive off of the energy of other people around us, and I think that's why, despite doing a degree in biology, I didn't stay in biology for very long. I think that, I didn't like the thought of a life in a lab on my own late at
so
night.
Different now.
So I'm definitely a people person. My dad is an incredible leader and has sort of come from quite big leadership roles within previous jobs. And again, I guess similar to me, sort of accidentally became a leader. It's like before you know it, you look around and you're like, oh God, people are looking at me here. But I think I've always, like maybe because of my dad and my upbringing and both my parents, had a natural tendency to be confident and sort of be willing to take the lead in a situation. And then I think, just with where we're at currently within the business and its growth, it's sort of accidentally on purpose ended up being me, being the person that is running the things that we're doing. So I'd say, in answer to that question, it's a combination of upbringing, being a people person, like the people that I've got surrounded by me and the support I've got, and then I guess the unique situation. I guess I'm in a unique circumstance. If I'd have stayed at my role that I was in post graduation, it'd have probably taken me 7 years to get to the sort of level of leadership that I'm at now. But I mean, I probably would have learned quite a lot more on the way. I'm sort of learning on the job as I go at the moment. I think a combination of those things. And then what keeps me up at night? It depends what kind of day and week it's been. But I do just think that I think it's people's livelihood sort of being reliant on.
Yeah.
It's not reliant on me personally, but there is an element of that, and everybody's got their own individual circumstances and then on their own individual journeys, and it's really important to me that everybody feels supported in their roles and feels like they're getting what they want out of their roles. So if there's ever any time where there's wobbles around that, then that's sort of what makes me stress. I'm also I'm a very nice person, and I don't like people being upset, and I want to make sure that everybody's happy.
Which is hard
to my detriment at times.
It's hard in leadership, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like, I can relate to that. In construction, whenever I was project managing, I was just wanted to make sure everyone was happy, but sometimes you had to lay down a bit of a line, and it can be difficult because I think I hate saying this, but naturally, I think women aren't as good in some respects as men when it comes to just like a spade's a spade and this shit needs to get done.
No,
kind of skirt around
100%. And that's definitely something I'm working on at the minute. Is like we spoke before about boundaries with family, but boundaries within my work as well. Because I have such a tendency to say yes, and there's times where I it's just at my own detriment, and whether it's at my own detriment because my health suffers or I don't get enough sleep, or my own detriment that I'm not doing my job very well. If I can't do my job very well, then nobody else firstly has got anybody to look up to that's doing their job well, but then has the support that they need. And I mean, like, super simple example, it's the Easter holidays at the moment. I'm not sure when this will go live. But Niall is in Leeds today doing some camps, Easter camps. And I had a call from the ops lead there yesterday, and he said, so-and-so's starting at this time, so-and-so's starting at this time, so there'll just be Niall and 2 coaches in for that first camp. And I obviously I've always got loads of work to do. I was like, having to stop myself saying, well, it's all right because I'll just come in and up, because that's what I wanted to do. And I could have done, but then I also know that I needed to do 2 hours of work before I came here to do this podcast with you, and I didn't say I'd go in, but it like took everything within me to be like, okay, well, what are the options that we've got?
And you work through it.
Do you think I'm comfortable with you making this decision? And because my tendency is to just say yes.
Yeah.
just do it.
But it's also, to give you some credit, it's to fix, isn't it?
Like, 100%.
You know, and having a step back, sometimes we don't naturally do it because you want to jump in and fix. And if your passion has been like operations and making things work, that naturally fits with your personality.
But also, in order to grow in any business, but in the business as it is at the moment, like, have to let people breathe and do their roles. Because if I'm in there fixing and this again is, I'm not perfect at it, and I'm definitely working on it quite a lot, because my tendency is to go, do this, do that, do the other, and then everything will be all right. Or I'll come and help. But if I'm always doing that, then that person's not going to grow in their role, and that means that then it stifles the business eventually, because you've not got these people that are thinking growing for themselves and growing and exactly growing with the business.
Yeah. It's
like, really tricky.
Yeah, but it's the fact that you have that foresight is pretty cool. It's just a work in progress.
Don't always get it right, I definitely don't always get it right.
My dad was in business for 30 years, and he had a big team, and he, like, to this day says to me, he's just like, more people, more hassle, and you never get a working system. There's always going to be problems, and it's a people's game, isn't it? You know, you can have things in place and systems, but at the end of the day, it's a people's game, and I think sport is very much like that. I'm going to segue a little bit into, because before this we were chatting behind the cameras about gymnastics and getting kids into gymnastics, and how, you know, kids sit behind video games these days, and certain sports are getting lost, and activities, and I know that's like part of your world and wanting to change that. And a big hot topic at the moment is this adolescence, and, you know, the dark world of...
I've not actually seen it.
Oh,
I need
don't.
to watch
well,
it.
do, but it's kind of scary. And the one thing that I mentioned as well was that when my son came to Niall Gymnastics, there's... I don't know who the guys were that are teaching, but it was nice for him to see guys doing gymnastics and teaching, and then other boys in the group as well. Has the sport really come on from just thinking it girls in leotards, and how much of that do we have to go?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly think the sport has revolutionised probably since the 2008 Olympics, which was when Lewis Smith won a bronze medal on the pommel horse, and I think he was probably the cornerstone of the growth and development of the sport. He was the first gymnastics medal that had been won for over 100 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And I guess it's like the 4-minute mile, isn't it? It's like setting that belief for everybody coming up behind you that it is possible, and we can win medals in the Olympics for the sport. And it was a male that won a medal in the Olympics. And I think that, it's definitely... So we won 1 medal in Beijing, and then we won 3 in London, and then we won 5, I think, in Rio. And we're moving in a direction that is, this country is good at the sport, but with that, and with your sort of superheroes at the pinnacle level, which is going to the Olympics and winning the medals, it just gets so much more eyeballs on the sport, and so many more children looking up to those athletes and wanting to be like them, which is amazing. So I definitely think that a lot more boys have got into the sport. It's definitely still very female dominated. I think it's probably about 80%, 20%, I would say, even across all of our gyms. And it's really important, I think, to give boys an environment that they're comfortable in. Yeah. So we do have boys only classes if boys will be more comfortable in doing sessions with other boys and sort of working in that environment. But I think it's definitely, from my side, it's seeing the people at the top of the sport and then wanting to be like them that's driven it. And there are still so many people on waiting lists in the UK for gymnastics. Is there? It's unbelievable. There's over 1 million children on waiting lists for gymnastics in the UK.
You need to open more. Because there isn't any other... I don't know. Are there any other companies like yours?
I won't name drop on the podcast. There is one.
Okay.
But in terms of doing what we're doing, we're we're getting there to be leading the way.
Yeah, because it is, isn't it? I imagine. So my little one, a few of his friends do gymnastics, and it is at like a local council, which is fine. It's everybody has to start.
And the
somewhere.
school clubs and leisure centres, and I mean, any of it, all of it, and I think that it's you're building those foundational skills wherever you are. If you can get into an after school club or a leisure centre, while you're waiting to try and get into a bigger club as well, then 100% do it.
So there's a huge waiting list then. So the need is there. It's just about for no big job for you, of course. No
exactly.
To get those million kids into gymnastics.
Yeah, we need coaches to be able to do that as well.
Okay, so that's probably a barrier too.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the industry's interesting. It's definitely a vocation of a sort of career and a job. It's unsociable hours, and it's generally people are gymnastics coaches that were gymnasts. That's generally how it goes. We had a big period of time in COVID where they weren't running any courses. It's definitely caught itself up now, but I think also these people in the gymnastics world are very loyal to where they have trained and worked and always worked.
Right.
So the coaching side of it is tricky. I definitely think it's probably a bottleneck in the whole of the industry, is getting enough coaches to be able to put on enough classes to then be able to start lowering those waiting lists. But we're doing a lot of work to develop our own people, and we've got a young leadership program called our Hero program, which is where when gymnasts turn 14 they can become a hero, and it starts with volunteering hours. And then when they turn 16 we put them through their level 1 course and they could become a coach. And we're also doing what we can in terms of providing career paths and full-time roles, and it's an industry as well where not very many full-time roles are available because you're open from 4 till 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And it's really tricky to squeeze a 40-hour week when the majority of your business is from 4 o'clock onwards. So, I'd definitely say that we're changing the game on that front, and we're really trying to push gymnastics as a career that you can get involved in, rather than just, I think, quite often coaches view it as a hobby. They'd have a full-time day job. And then they might coach a couple of times a week as well.
Yeah. I want to flip back just quickly before we wrap up about your experience at Cambridge.
Okay.
Just because I ended up going, long story, but I ended up having to, I don't know if that's the right word. I struggled a bit at school, and I got put in my later years into a private school.
Okay.
And a lot of people in the private school, I came from a state system and was like, wow, there's a lot of pressure educational-wise here for people to go to Oxford and Cambridge. They were the two. Did you come from private background?
No, I went to state school.
Okay, so Northern State School.
Woohoo!
Landed at Cambridge.
Quincy Grangefield.
Shout out. That's a massive achievement. Because I think still the stats of getting to...
Yeah, I mean, in my year at school, I went to Cambridge, and there was a guy called John who went to Oxford. That's it, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm not sure that anybody... There might have been one person who went to Cambridge the year before.
Right.
And so it's less than 5.
Did you find it quite... I mean, it's an elite university, isn't it? But like, how did you find the experience when you were there? Did you... I suppose I'm skirting around the subject. Did you feel like a bit of an outsider, or...?
I think it's a really interesting place, and you'll hear a lot of people say sort of similar things. You go from being... And I don't want to sound... I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a dick when I say this, but like, you go from being the best in your class and in your year and in your school, because in order to go to a place like Cambridge, you have to get the grades to be able to do that. And then you get thrown in this pond that's got everybody who was the best. and it's really, really interesting for your psyche. It's like very big pond, small fish, and you're surrounded by... So there was 2 of us in our school that went. You're surrounded by the 2 from that school and that school and that school and that school and that school. And you're very much, not the best anymore.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting adjustment. I think that absolutely loved my time at Cambridge. I feel very privileged to have gone to such a prestigious place, and it was a really interesting place to study. I think you get an array of experience, and you have the people that you would sort of expect to meet, and a lot of people do come from private school, but there are a lot of people that are northern and come from state schools and come from all over the world. And I think the cultural sort of exposure that you get in a place like that is absolutely amazing as well. But it's hard. Yeah, it's really fucking hard, and it's
quite a nice wake up call, I guess, as well. Like something similar in that when I went from state school, well, kind of my middle school, I was sports captain. It was a very small school. I was sports captain in school, and I felt like I was the elite athlete. My husband was wetting himself laughing at this. And then I went to a sports school, a private sports school, where athletes were shipped in from Europe to play hockey or do whatever.
Brings
and I
remember, you down to earth.
I remember trialling out for the hockey, and I got into the thirds, and I was like, because they used to call them the turds, and I was like, what? I've come from sports captain, but the reality was I wasn't a touch on these other, hockey players. But it then gave me the next level to get out there. I want to say that I really pushed into hockey, and I didn't actually gave it the 2 fingers and did football. But it's quite humbling, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's amazing as well to be in an environment where you can surround yourself with those sort of people, and people that are working really hard to achieve what you're trying to achieve as well. It's I guess that's a perception point, isn't it? It depends on how you look at the environment that you've been put into, and I think I just tried my best, and I was surrounded by supportive people, and I had a couple of buddies that were also doing my course, and we worked together, and I definitely knew that when you get into a place like Cambridge, you go from being like the top 1% to like not being the top 1% at all. And I wasn't. But I held my own, and I did all right, and I had a really nice time. And like I say, it taught me how to work really hard, which is a skill that then I've been able to translate into everything I've done since.
Yeah, no, totally. And there's got to be something in the Wilson gene pool to have Cambridge graduate and a biggest. I'm going to call you a business mogul.
Don't say that when my parents are around. Your heads will get too
big. Something. Yeah, there is only 2 of you, right?
Yeah, there is.
There's not like a third child that's
musician
in the closet. Amazing. Well, I'm super excited. I think your story is incredible for women to learn that, that there's opportunities out there in many different scenarios, but equally that just hard work, like you say, and not being scared. I think your story is a good one to show people that you didn't really have much industry experience, but you've just taken everything within your stride, and you're now building this business, but you're building it with purpose, which is really cool. Because I can see that's a big thing that drives you.
100%.
And as a people person. So you've definitely dared and won. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.